are doing something about it. And this is what we want to talk about. We want to highlight this because the more we talk, I keep saying, the more we talk, the more people get to know. And the moment we stop talking is the moment we start fighting. We don't want to go down that slippery slope. And all this rain you've been seeing and flash floods and everything, Jalas, if we had a forest cover or trees blocking all this, I don't think we'd have as many floods. Let's just ask Mr. John Gishora, the Group Managing Director, NIC Bank, and Mohammed Elmi. He's with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Gentlemen, welcome to Hot 96.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you both. Look, how critical is this, the fact that deforestation is happening at such an alarming rate? John, let's talk to you first. What do you say? How critical is the situation right now?
Absolutely critical. Look, I think everybody in Kenya prides themselves in being some kind of a farmer. I start from there. And if you see the cries of farmers, that means every Kenyan over the last 2 years about drought, lack of rain. And then when the rains come, the cries we have heard about floods everywhere, Narok, Nairobi, even outside of towns, Sultan Hamud and everywhere else. It tells you this is absolutely critical. Tree cover, we have had these cries forever, this story about desertification. We're getting there at an alarming rate today. It's critical.
Yeah. And it seems, Mohammed Elmi, it seems like very few people are talking about it. Okay, we talk about it this month and maybe 1 month, 2 months, and then after that, boom, it disappears. It's like we're in denial all over again.
I think it's very serious, as my colleague has said. I just want to make one correction. The official, by the technical people, the forest cover is at 7.2.
Okay.
And it should be more than 10. Our constitution says by 2030, we should be at least past that 10. Of course, there was a time I'm told it came to 2. But at the moment it's 7.2.
Okay.
But the president has decreed that we should arrive at that by 2022.
Is that possible?
I am sure it's possible with the help of all Kenyans. If all Kenyans kept together and planted trees, I'm sure we'll reach there.
John Gishora, what are we doing? What is NIC doing? And what can the rest of us do to raise that forest cover back to 10% and above?
Sure, as the CES has said, we need to build a forest cover. And I think from my reading is that out of that 7% that the CES said, about 5% of it is actually private land forest. 2% is government land forest. That tells me that private land forest is where we shall move the dial. And so what NIC is doing is driving towards this consciousness that everybody can plant a tree, everybody can play a role. It's not just the government. The minister may be here, and he's going to do everything within his power to ensure this is being done. But at the end of the day, we're not a nanny state. People must take responsibility. What NIC, with its partners, including Royal Media Services, is doing is to create this consciousness, to challenge every individual to plant a tree. Our aim is that if every able-bodied Kenyan were to plant a tree today, we would have 30 million trees planted today, which would contribute a great deal towards the target the minister has talked about of getting over 10% forest cover in this country. So what are we doing? We're creating a movement. We're working together with partners like the government, Kenya Forest Services, the Raw Media Services, Greenbelt Movement, the Junior Achievement Movement, to create this movement that's called Change the Story. The story has been the same. Every year, at a certain point in life, you hear drought. At a certain point in life, you hear floods. Every year in this country. Can we get to a point where we can leave a generation that doesn't have to read this story? Can we change this story? That is the movement we're working to create.
And yet, Waziri, every other day in the papers, there's, the government says no more logging, and no more charcoal burning.
We saw
government
cars coming from the forest to the logs.
And we're not pointing fingers at the government. Obviously, there are many culprits in this, but when you see the same government that's saying no logging, no charcoal burning, and then they turn around and they're transporting logs and charcoal, Waziri, come on.
I think it's good to be fair. Yes, people who work for government who turn to be criminals, and therefore it's not the government directive is very clear. Logging was banned, and any person using a government vehicle or who is a policeman or doing it is a criminal. It's unfortunate, but I'm sure the action has been taken against those ones. And the ones who arrested them, some are, of course, the public whistle blew, but it's a government who also arrested them and taken them to court. Jeff, what I want to say is the government is putting up a framework. As we speak, the presidency in the cabinet office is leading with my ministry, trying to get all partners across, trying to get Kenyans, like NIC, BIDCO. Many of the corporates are coming up, but unions are also coming up. KUPPET were in our offices saying we want to make all secondary schools and tertiary organizations to be green. The resident associations in Nairobi are coming and saying we'll organize ourselves and we'll plant trees. That's what we want, that all Kenyans move back to what we used to be, those of us who are old enough to know, where every year we planted trees. And we're saying, let's grow trees. Don't just plant. Make sure you nurture them, that they actually come up. And this year, the theme is we want to use it for our unity and cohesion. So tunasema panda miti, penda Kenya.
Penda Kenya.
Wow. And we are allowing all different partners to have their sub-themes, like the way NIC has just said. And hopefully, before 2022, we'll see a change. Of course, as you know, there's a task force who's going to make recommendations. I think achieving the planting of the trees and growing them is one thing, but to use our forests and even the farmers and the private ones in a sustainable way to change the way Kenyans approach, forest will be a major thing.
Yeah.
I think just to step in there, one of the things we are clear about our campaign is to move away from being an non-state, blaming the government, asking the government to do, right? Our view in this movement is that individuals must take responsibility. That at the end of the day, it's not the government that gets out and goes to burn charcoal.
That's true.
In Malindi or Machakos or anywhere else. It's individuals. And then we turn around and say trees are being decimated. What's the government doing about it? This movement is about saying, if you cut a tree, replace with two. If you cut a tree, replace with two. The government cannot monitor that. And yes, as the minister said, there are criminals out there. However, if we all planted a tree, we would turn it against them. At the end of the day, we'll get those criminals to plant those trees as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. John, where have you guys already got tree planting going on? Any areas that you've already started planting trees?
Sure. NIC has been in the tree planting movement for quite some time, actually. There's a forest we planted quite a bit in Uplands for a few years now. However, this movement is not about, a corporate coming out and saying we'll plant X number of trees, because that has been done. That is being done. A number of corporates that you find out have taken that mantle on themselves. It's about now changing that and saying, actually, corporates can only do so much. Yeah, we're planting next week, this week on Saturday. We're all meeting in Gong Forest to plant trees again, and we shall continue to do so. But at the end of the day, we'll not move the dial. The dial is going to be moved when you, Jalango, go to your neighborhood and you plant 5 trees. When you, Jeff, you go to your neighborhood and you plant 5 trees. There's something I learned recently that was very interesting for the Green Belt movement, that each person requires 10 trees to survive. Each person requires 10 trees. Your oxygen needs 10 trees. I went home, I counted the number of kids in my house, I knew how many there were, but I counted trees in my area, and I shared them out. And I realized I have huge deficit in my own home. And the key is to go and make sure that you plant those trees. So each house, if you're one, you require 10 trees. Do you know your trees?
We are how many? You have 7 children.
Yes, 7 children.
Times 10, that's 70.
70. Yes,
you see, that's a little forest.
Yes, I will have Jalango Forest somewhere.
You will have, but when?
Next week, yes. But you're starting to plant tomorrow. You're starting to plant tomorrow.
It's Jalango's birthday tomorrow.
Yes. Oh, happy birthday.
He turns 35.
And I'm planting 35 trees tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Then Jeff's birthday passed. He's supposed to plant 80. You're supposed to be planting 80 trees.
Because I'm 80. So now, Waziri, other than, I like that initiative, by the way, Panda Mti Penda Kenya, is also a hashtag going around saying, change the story.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I think Panda meeting is new, and it should be coming out. I think it will come to the media very soon. It was just signed off yesterday. And basically, we're saying, let's be united in securing our future, the future of our children. So we haven't been very good, those of us who are old enough to have seen us, disseminate our forests or whichever way we did it. And he says it's about every Kenyan taking responsibility. It's not about only the gazetted forests. Let's do it across the country. It's about the tree cover. Of course, the gazetted forests, they have targets. There will be change of management as a result of, the moratorium and the task force. But we are saying, please, every Kenyan, and I like the idea that, for every person, let's plant those particular number of trees. And if you're living in a flat, you can put some, what do you call the ones, the pots you put in a room. But just walk to one of the neighborhood forests and maintain some trees there. So there is an opportunity. Go to the school where your children go, plant some trees, and sustain them, let them grow, and as you cut them, plant more.
Yeah. John,
I think the story about change the story is about the fact that every year, at a certain point in the year, you hear the same story. Drought.
Yeah.
Usually happens around January, February, March.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And then floods.
Yeah.
Usually happens around April and November.
That's right.
Every year. People are dying. Every year you see a picture of goats,
Swept
starved
away.
goats, starved camels, starved whatever.
Yep.
You see kids who need food. You hear about food distribution in this country every year. All because we cannot predict our climate. We're still a very natural climate-driven country when it comes to agriculture. Everybody looks up and says, predict when the rains will come, and that's when, if the president is talking about this food security thing, the only way we can get out of this rut is to be able to predict our climate. And so changing the story is about saying we should not wait for our generations, our kids, to be reading the same stories we are reading today. If we can do something about it today by planting trees, so that for them the stories will not be about floods, the stories will not be about drought, but will be about bumper harvests. Predictable harvests. That is the story we want to change. So the hashtag, change the story, is each person can contribute towards changing this story of drought and floods.
Are Kenyans listening when you tell them this? Are people out there listening?
There. The start of all this, if I may, Jeff, started from a tweet I did which said, what if every able-bodied Kenyan planted a tree? That would be 30 million trees. And I got a lot of feedback. Show us how. My tweet has actually been but my tweet was very simple. Government should declare, a week of tree planting so that we get to 30 million trees. And the feedback I got from everybody, including people in government, is, let us show us how. How do we do it? How do you create a movement? How do you get people excited? And so just looking at the feedback we've gotten, social media, people calling us, people being part of, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And corporates are coming to partner with us to make this happen. So people are listening. People want to be galvanized. People want to create this consciousness. People want to gather their 10 trees.
And I think from the ministry, people really, Kenyans are coming out in a big way. So every day people saying, look, we want to give, visibility to the work we're doing. Come and join us.
Yeah.
And there are many, like NIC, who are organizing in different groups. And we're not putting any, stop to it. And I think time has reached where Kenyans have just woken up and realized, wow, we lost something that we were good at.
Yeah.
When we were in school, every year there was some time you would go after the event with the DC, you pick your trees, you go back home, you plant some.
Yeah.
Right.
And we used to come years later and say, that tree was mine. So we want Kenyans to go back to that period where really, and this time sustainably, and not thinking about what is government doing. So it has to be all Kenyans, attitude change. And in addition, we are saying, look, we have not been doing very well in our cohesion. So as a minister was saying, it's something to be united around. It's our survival. So let's build up the oxygen.
Yeah.
And to all corporates going out there planting trees, yes, we appreciate your tracksuits, we appreciate your sunglasses and everything, but please, after planting and having that good Sunday afternoon out,
And a selfie.
go back and check if the tree you planted
Is
actually
actually
growing,
growing.
because there's much more than just planting and not growing the tree.
Sure.
And you know how we Nairobi people are. It's a Ndakaini moment, it's a Karura moment.
Yes,
Selfies. Or planting trees,
Yes.
manenos, then that's it.
Gone.
You never come back to that Karura. You never go back to check it.
Absolutely.
Please, when you plant that tree, own it and make sure that it comes to life. That's the only way you can change the story.
Very good point.
Yes.
The key, as you call it, is sustainability. That when you plant a tree, it must be sustainable. Yeah, and it's looking back into it, watering it, making sure it's getting the nutrients that it required. It's safe from animals, for example. So yes, sustainability is key plank of this movement.
And you can't be farther from the truth. That's the best thing that corporates can do and other people can do. And there are communities who live around the forest, and they have formed themselves into community, forest associations. Really, if corporates want to, they should, partner with those communities. Those communities, the benefits is that they actually produce the seedlings. So corporates buy, they help them with putting it up. They're willing to provide scouts to continue maintaining. So annually, they can actually, or every 6 months, every season, they can come back. Some have taken, 100 acres, like the Association of Agrochemical Manufacturers in Lika there. But they're all over. So let me not mention only a few. They are coming up. And the best approach is work with the communities in there. They look after it and, adapt to that area.
Absolutely.
For some time, then move to another area.
Wessie on Twitter says, a nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. Forests are the lungs of our land, purifying the air and giving fresh strength to our people. Absolutely true. If the late, great Wangari Maathai was alive, John Gashora, what would she think? Would she get up and slap everybody around and tell you, I told you so? Would she be disappointed?
Well, I think she'll be joining us in this journey very strongly. I must say that the number of calls I made when this thing started, one of the first people I called was Wanjera Maathai, the daughter of Wangari Maathai,
Correct.
because I thought this is close to her mother's heart and also to her in her own way.
Yep.
And she has been part of this. So Greenbelt movement is working with us in this journey. And in terms of sustainability, I wanted to mention that one of the things Greenbelt movement actually brings is they have a geographical information mapping system where when you plant trees, they capture it and they can monitor it over time. So corporates that are planting, it's good to work together with the likes of Greenbelt movement so they can monitor that sustainability.
Wow.
But I think Wangari Maathai will be disappointed today because trees continue to be destroyed at an alarming rate. Yeah, I don't think she'll be a happy woman today.
No.
And I think what we are saying is, in her respect, let us go back to the ideals she lived for. And the ideas we ourselves, all of us, should be living for, which is that we want an environment that is proud for us, but also even more prouder for our kids.
Absolutely. So well put. So well put. Let's take a quick break, come back and ask you the question, can one donate to this? Is there a way to donate? Is there a pay bill number?
Wow.
Let us know after the break. We're speaking live to the Group Managing Director of NIC Bank. That's my bank, by the way.
Oh,
John Gashora. This is my MD. And the CAS at the Ministry of Environment and Environment and Forestry, Mohammed Elmi in the house. We're talking trees. We're talking survival. We're talking keeping Kenya breathing.